mathematics enrollment threatens South Africa's future in science, technology, and engineering. Now, high schools are quietly facing a crisis that could shape South Africa's workforce for years to come, with a sharp shift from mathematics to mathematics literacy among pupils, especially in under-resourced and township schools. Now, Sis Open, Managing Director and Independent Education Consultant, Dr. Khali, calls it South Africa's invisible crisis. And Dr. Khali now joins us virtually to discuss the sharp decline in high school maths enrollment. Dr. Khali, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
I didn't see.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
So you point to the sharp decline in high school maths enrollment, and you say it's an invisible crisis, but exactly how bad is the situation?
Really bad.
Well, at the moment, we constantly, every year, about 1.2% of students at matric level drop mathematics as a percentage of the cohort of learners doing maths. Now, this has been going on since 2018. So in the total number of learners who did mathematics in 2018, it was 44% of the learners. We are now at 36%. And so that is over 6 years, 8.1% of learners have dropped from maths to mathematical literacy. The real issue is if we do nothing about it, and let's assume for the next 6 years we do nothing,
people to do maths.
36% will become 28%.
I need to stop teaching maths.
And now then let's close to only a quarter of our learners doing mathematics. But the real issue is it's not only about mathematics as a subject, because mathematics is carrying ideas like critical thinking, innovative understanding. Those are the skills that we need. It's not just about a subject. You're not getting that with mathematics.
In engineering,
so has the department or any other entity for that matter embarked on any sort of qualitative research, Dr. Khali, to establish the actual facts and also what some of the underlying issues may be?
Well, what we've been doing all the time is all about what is called fixing up things. What we're dealing with here is a broken mathematical approach. And you can't fix something that is broken. So we constantly ask teachers to come to workshops for 1 day or 3 days. But the system is broken. And what we look for, and we should not forget, this mathematical problem is not a problem that just surfaced. It was designed. And if we go back, and I'm old enough to know that Foucault says that Black people should not do mathematics. And so that's the underlying basis, that we are fixing the problem and we're not recreating a new understanding of mathematics with our teachers and our learners. And it's not just the matric. 2 years ago, 2023, the results of the term study indicated that our best performing learners are performing at the same level as the worst learners in Singapore. And we were in the same study. So there's a uniquely difference between the quality of mathematics that we have and other countries.
So it's a sad indictment.
In Singapore,
we are doing worse. We are classified as the worst with Singapore. We can't be. Now I thought you guys are passing. I thought you guys are getting 90s and 98, 100% on maths, things like that. I thought you guys know shit. Apparently, you guys don't know shit. I did my matric in 2013. I don't think that was like easy or what. I was working hard, but compared to yours, caps is kind of like, for me, I would say it's kind of like difficult, because of there's more content in in subsequent grades or previous grades. So like you might have morning tomorrow morning or Thursday night. Would you like us for the source of a woman to come? What are they saying? What is this my chat saying? Good morning, what are you eating over there? I'm eating kota, sepak, kota. I'm eating kota. Benis Chabalala. You know what kota is, mostly from South Africa, I can see. Let me see. Salome Nkoto Masinya. Tomorrow morning or Thursday, I would like to source women to come tomorrow and get the best of the best I can get. What are you guys saying? Come on, man.
And we were in the same study. So there's a uniquely difference between study indicated. Like 2 years ago, 2023, the results of the term study indicated that our best performing learners are performing at the same level as the worst learners in Singapore. And
the best are performing
so there's
like the worst in Singapore.
A unique difference between the quality
of mathematics
that we have and other countries.
So it's a sad indictment because South Africa first participated in the term study in 1995, and even then we were at the bottom of the pile.
Grade 11,
and even though if you look at the data going forward up to 2019, we do see an increase, but still, as you say, not enough because we are still worse than some other countries that are in the study. That being said, though, we've known what the problems are with regard to math, science, education in South Africa. It's 31 years on. New systems have been designed. So what is the problem? Why are we failing to fix this?
Well, it was interesting. I spoke to Leanne in 2010 about this issue, and we raised it 15 years ago.
That's the room. Look, I need to
and what we can do outside of the system is to assist and to alarm
my mic
and to help the system itself. But we need the system to take on and do things differently. I think just a day or two ago, I had a conversation with a colleague in the department, and it's starting to reflect around doing what we call transformative work instead of improvement work. When you do improvement, ma'am, and you are at 5% and you improve by 5%, it means you are still at 10%. And what people can do, it can claim that you've improved by 100%. 100% of 5% only gets you to 10%. That's the real problem and the story that we're telling. We're telling people in the news that from 5% we improved by 100% to 10%, but we're still 90% away from 100%, which should be our dream as any country in the world.
So we're not getting there, and now the alarm is raised around what happens with regard to maths vis-a-vis maths literacy in the higher band of our schooling system. The reality is, though, and you would know this, Dr. Khali, children are failing at foundation phase. So there's a bigger problem here. And the problem starts way before we get to high school. And again, we've known this for decades. Why aren't we improving? Why aren't we addressing the fact that we don't have, in many instances, the teachers who can actually teach and assist here?
Well, we have what is called a quality assurance problem, what is called in business monitoring and evaluation. Control system. If you are supposed, as the system and even CAPS is expecting you to give your learners 30% of easy questions in an exam, 40% medium questions, and 30% high questions. That is a standard internationally. But if you now give your learners 50 or 60% of easy questions
Imagine.
and 10% of and 20% of medium and
It's like
hard
we are
questions.
backtracking.
They get good results out of the 60% of easy
And they think they're
questions,
smart.
and you
They're
create a
not.
perception that they're good, but they're only good in the easy questions.
You know, the
when they
mess
get
that-
the internationals,
Do you guys know what
they only get
the type of mess that goes on in engineering? Let me show you something. You see, this is engineering maths, first year. When you're doing engineering maths at vets, you're gonna get this. 1014, I don't know what now they're teaching, but like it must be something similar to that.
30% of the easy ones, and they get, even if they get 100% of the easy ones, they're only getting 30% because they can't do the medium and hard
Okay,
work.
Ndlalosia,
And those
how's
are
it?
the
South
systems that we
Africans,
need
how are
to
you?
put in place to make sure that whether you are in an urban area or in a rural place, those learners should be getting the same quality
Engineering maths,
as
first
anyone
year.
else in the country.
The reality
And
is,
our systems
11 and
what we need
12
to look at.
maths.
Sorry.
so Dr. Khali, the reality is we're not getting what it is that we need in the system. We haven't got it for 31 years. Seemingly for the foreseeable future, we still don't seem to be on track. So what do we need to do practically? Where are these teachers going to come from who will actually be able to take these
Stats
kids and
for
not
engineers.
somehow force them into taking maths literacy as
We are
opposed
gonna
to
do
pure
a
maths
lot.
because things are just not happening? Because at some point we have to establish, hence I asked about the qualitative research. It can't always be the children who don't know how to do maths. At some point we've got to ask
have to
about
check.
other factors that contribute to this problem.
Absolutely. So, ma'am, we don't have a teacher problem.
No.
We have a systems problem.
The approach.
And so I want to be quite clear. Our teachers can only do what they know.
My webcam
And
is
if they
acting
only know the 30% of easy work that you need to do, that's what they will do. It's the system that needs to shape what's going on. And this problem, although we're raising it as a crisis, when we say it's a crisis, we can fix it up within the next 3 to 5 years. It's not something insurmountable. It's not something that we can't find a solution to. And we don't even need people outside of our country. We have enough capacity within our country to solve this problem.
We're gonna go
But we need to start now. As I indicated, we raised this in 2010. After 15 years, we're at the same spot as what we were 15 years ago. So we need to make a decision. How do we want to have successful mathematical teaching and learning to our teachers and our learners?
Dr. Khali, very interesting, and thank you so much for engaging us, and looking forward to further engagement. Dr. Muawiyah Khali, SIS Open Managing Director and Independent Education Consultant, speaking to us about schools across South Africa not offering mathematics as a subject, and unfortunately, most often it is in the schools that serve the poorest of the poor. Well, let's leave it there for now. We need to take a quick break.
As the country takes stock of the performance of the matric class of 2025, math and science remain the most contentious subjects as far as the pass rate is concerned. But not for Free State physical science teacher Lerato Ramabodu, who has just achieved a 100% matric pass rate for a 9th consecutive year. The 31-year-old teacher who started achieving this 100% streak at the start of his career in 2017 has taught at different schools and is currently the deputy principal at Makwane Secondary School, but continues teaching to inspire others to strive for greatness. And he joins us now to tell us more about this achievement and the secret to achieving a 100% pass rate for nearly a decade. Let's talk about that. Good morning. Good morning, Lerato. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, ma'am.
Now, we know that many teachers struggle, especially in your part of the country, with overcrowded classrooms, limited resources, learner fatigue. What is your secret to achieving not only 100% pass rate, but 9 years consecutively?
I think the results, I give credit to where I started. I started teaching in 2017. I was a student from university. And then I happened to meet my then principal, who's now the second manager, Khali NM. She's the one who took me under her wings in terms of showing me the classroom management, how to prepare for learners, and the importance of lesson preparations and all of that. And also the colleagues, I was thrown into a school or a culture where results are non-negotiable. All the subjects were performing in 100% across times. So I had to acclimatize and fit into the system.
Now, science, it's no secret, is seen often as one of the most challenging subjects. So what strategies do you apply to make it less intimidating and more accessible to the students?
Shout out.
Number one, you see, the most important, I think, strategy is the issue of learner absenteeism, as I have said. I always ensure that I minimize it to the latter. All learners who are absent, number one, the parents have to report in terms of their whereabouts. If there are no reports, then I have to ensure that I visit their homes to check their well-being. What is the problem? Because
what if you have 50 students?
They miss the lesson. They will miss a lot. Remember how much I prepared for the lessons. The issue of learner punctuality during classes as well. And also, I want to give credit to parents. Parents always support me wherever I come from. I'm from Limpopo. Parents supported me. Parents supported me even at Makwane. So I think this achievement is not mine only. Also, the dedication from learners, the support from parents in the community as well.
I love that you've mentioned that, because oftentimes, parents think that academic success is purely the responsibility of the teachers. We send them to school, it's your problem, but it actually is a partnership. How do you involve the parents in the journey of the students?
Number one, I hold them accountable for absenteeism, because when the academic year begins, I have a meeting with them to tell them about the modus operandi, what is expected, the issue of the absenteeism, and how we will. I communicate with them effectively. That are managed. There are targets that are set to learners irrespective of their abilities. The 60% target for physical science in that of the examination. So any learner who goes beyond the threshold expected pass percentage in test, maybe once or twice or thrice, the parents have to account in terms of when the learners are home, what are they doing? Because I'm saying, I'm expecting them to prepare even for weekly tests. So the pass percentage of learners emanates from the weekly test. They perform well on the weekly test because they are on the standard of the exam. So on the examination, they just reflect on what they were doing on the weekly tests.
Now, last year you walked into Makwane Secondary School as a new deputy principal. They had an 81% pass rate in physical science in 2024. You took over the class and pushed it to 100%. So take us inside that transformation and what it is that you saw that others may have missed.
And like I say, most of the time the credit is not only mine. Even the teacher whom I found there, the credit also goes to him, because there was a collaboration or teamwork between us. Want to own the credit. But I will say, the first thing I did when I came there, I was on a mission to say all the lessons to pass, irrespective of the challenges that we meet and all of that. So I had to introduce the issue of 6 a.m. that all learners has to attend 6 a.m. classes where we try to, to fit in the content gaps that might have been there in terms of the analysis and all of that. And sometimes we go beyond the norms, we knock at 10, sometimes at 2 a.m. But every time when these learners complain, I always, remind them in their hearts that, remember, we have an opportunity, actually a responsibility to go to universities. You need to go to University of Cape Town. Mapolis is a rural place, but I'm saying, despite the conditions and the background they live in, I believe that they can access top universities. University of Cape Town, the Best University, Pretoria University, and all of that. Yes, ma'am.
Now, walk us through a typical day when a student is struggling with a concept in the classroom. What is that Lerato magic, that Lerato touch that you apply to turn a struggling student into a passing student?
Can I be honest with you, ma'am? In physical science, we don't have a lunchtime. We don't have a lunchtime. According to the analysis of weekly tests, all learners who are struggling are sure. Remember, the weekly tests are marked by me, irrespective of the number that I teach. They are marked by me so that I'm able to see the gaps, the content gaps. Maybe during the teaching learning process, some learners have not yet understood what I said. So I will be able to identify that when I'm busy marking the weekly test. And during the report of the weekly test, the analysis report, all learners who are underperforming, every day at break, they are at my office. They visit my office consistently. They take their food from the NSMP, visit my office, and then we reteach the topics where they did not understand. So I ensure that I leave no learner behind.
Now, many of your learners, as you've indicated, come from very difficult backgrounds. I mean, they study by candlelight, they share textbooks, they walk long distances, but you somehow manage to keep them motivated. What message do you have for other students in other parts of the country where they may be coming from difficult backgrounds, and yet almost use that as an excuse not to get ahead?
Ma'am, I believe that education is a leveler. They don't have to come from big houses, to be from, privileged families to access these top universities. When you go to university, the only thing that they want is results, nothing else. Irrespective of, the wealth and the economic wealth of their families. Even a child of a domestic worker can access the University of Cape Town, can access the Stellenbosch University of. I've seen them. I've seen them go, packing their clothes and saying that about colleagues leaving. I'm going to get university and all of that, irrespective of their background. Now come back to so that they can.
Now, percent pass rate was the average mark of the students overall.
This year, because I was there just for a short period of time, I think it was for 2 months, they went to 40 something.
Hey. And then tell me something, like you've cracked that code that many schools are still searching for, right? So if the Department of Basic Education, for instance, asked, what would you advise at a national level, right? What would be your advice on fixing the science education system in this country?
No, that is a tough question, but I believe, ma'am, it comes from the teacher side, the dedication and the passion and the desire to want it. I think it comes from an individual teacher to say, I want to achieve this. I want to see this learner, reaching this maximum level and all of them. Strategy can be there, ma'am, but as long as there are no implementation, then it becomes a problem. We can strategize it at the national level, but the executors, if they lack, then that is where the problem is.
That is fantastic. We are so proud of you. Thank you so much for your time. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
This one I was quite sad, man. Like zero, yo. People who are living in Limpopo, if this is your content.
The matric class of 2025 recorded a national pass rate of 88%, with Limpopo achieving 86.1%. For many, these numbers are a reason to celebrate, proof that progress is being made. But in the Khalalopeng village, outside Darfurkop, in Limpopo, the results tell a far more painful story. Seeking answers, my colleague and I, Kaukhelo Kumete, traveled to the village to understand what went wrong. Kaukhelo, where are we?
Well, Tabo, we are in the Khalalopeng. We are actually visiting the school, Naledi Amiso, where it was recorded that they got a 0% pass rate, which became a shock, obviously sending shockwaves.
As we approach Naledi Amosa, after a long drive, dodging potholes, we meet a group of young learners from the school who tell Kaukhelo the 2025 matrics lacked discipline.
So one of the problems that we are already picking up is that there's behavioral discipline issues. This is not the first time that the school has actually recorded as 0%.
Now that we had seen the school currently undergoing renovations, Kaukhelo and I couldn't help but wonder how a place receiving state-of-the-art infrastructure could still produce a 0% pass rate. To find the answers, it was time to track down the learners who were in grade 12 last year. I'm recording, friend.
All right. So just tell us about your academic year last year. What happened from the get-go? What was the beginning of the year like? What were your hopes for matric up to this opportunity that would have been your achievements and advancing to higher education, but now nothing less than that?
From the start of the beginning, now making it forward. You know, but I just struggle with it. And the people are not doing that it's because it's bad. But just say longer than I they never connect so that makes it a connect the science. And in that, the science Korea science, which never connects after him. I'm thinking science principal and principal. Not from Makala principal, like Urvela level, you know, were not. And now Armala, Pumalan, you know, what I understand the center Makala. The results are in a so. And I'll complain now.
Grade 11. Then term 4 I pass. Grade fita vele kia ka grade 12. Erflaga grade 12. Raba butela rabo no restract la jongene kama on final bar to makala kel na muskolo. Propelo le nya kenen teacher ra metela physics at least re khono study. Re go bohloko cause re complain o tloga ka grade 10 azanga ba re thaetsa circuit manager re pujitse term 2 azanga ya re thaetsa lona. Re khopetse dilo tšentši but bona azanga ba nyokoshela shala morao jlo tsa rena re kwa bohloko ka feel. It's not like re kwa bose like ra bona ya trend but re kwa bohloko ene re ka se bontshe ne re ka se commenta o ne ntwe re tlang go iri nna nka rata go ba TA teacher go ruta bana ba sekolo le ke bone ba tswelela pele le bona go jo ntwe re be re kgopelang because nna ra bona gore already re fetse ke no ba kgopela gore ba batlisetse ma teacher a leng gore bona ba tlo kgone go ruta bana ba na le jamiso ba kgone go tlosa 0% la e leng gore rena re ibeile bona ba ishe godimo at least ba ka no isha godimo ya tloga go 0%.
This time Kaukhelo interviews a parent.
I le principal yana ibile ke mathata le ka classeng ba sa ene a ba ruta di physics le maths no khona jwang go phatsa physics le maths go se le motho a le laitsa go selo ka tsona na ba le kile batho ba modimo ka ba ba ishitse camp ba ile camp mara ba ile ka September week ke eng le tlo go ikhabara ka beke fela a e gona ba re swabile go swaba re swabile na re go gopela gore ba re thushe bao bana ba gana jwale ba leng ka gare ga matric ba ba thushe ba tswelele.
Where are we now? Tell us what transpired, who you saw.
So it's the end of day 1. So when we got here, we've had conflicting reports on what really happened at the school for it to come to a point of getting a 0% pass rate. So In the beginning, it was a matter of the allegation that the stream itself was changed last year, but it turns out, according to the account of the learners, those who were part of the 2025 cohort, the subject change, the merger of the business stream and the science stream actually happened when they went into grade 10. So when they were transitioning from their combined school to grade 10, that's the year when the stream was now merged. So now they have a combined stream, both the science and the business stream, which for them became a difficulty as they went. They realized that the subjects were difficult and they were not coping. They knew that the outcomes would be bad. They actually predicted this. They had tried apparently to have meetings with the principal to try and get an intervention to try and take it back to what it used to be, which is the business stream mainly, and that didn't happen. So last year in particular, the first term, apparently a few learners passed. Then the second term, they got an actual 0% in the examination. The same happened the second term. Then they knew, but they knew that it might actually be a blanket fail. But one of the learners, what they alleged was that one of the experiences they had is the principal who's supposed to teach physical sciences would actually give them results that they didn't understand or couldn't comprehend, because according to them, there was never an actual investment in teaching them. So the principal wouldn't necessarily come to class. They would avoid coming to class. Some of the teachers would abandon their responsibilities. So maybe perhaps you get a 60%, and they didn't understand how they got the 60%. So for them, it was at the time confusing, but maybe comforting. But then they knew that even though they got the results on paper at that time, these are the people who know them and they work with them at the school. But once it comes to the marking center, which is now in grade 12, the final examinations, it would be a different story completely. And then we spoke to a parent who spoke about how her son is so depressed that since the results came out, this is the first time he's actually stepped out of the house, and they are inconsolable. Basically, it's a very sad situation for them, because what they are emphasizing, even the scholars, is that it is a difficult situation to be in a position where you are an embarrassment and you are labeled an embarrassment nationally, and even the people locally think that you have let them down. You have kind of embarrassed the community, and the brand of the community itself has gone down. So that's what's been happening, and we looking forward to day 2. We're gonna
So on day 2 we are coming back right there behind you. That's the school, actually, if people can see it from my point of view. Yeah.
So tomorrow morning we are gonna come back here to just get an assessment and a sense of how the school operates on a daily basis. Because generally there were other allegations that the discipline is an issue. The principal can't hold it together in terms of disciplining the learners. So we want to kind of see, like, how do they get to school? What are some of the things that they do? Is there even an assembly? At this point, it looks like discipline is an issue. So we will just get an assessment tomorrow.
Yes, it's true. The principal is not well. And we noticed this in 2023. She was appointed in 2021. And then she started having, should I say, some sort of epilepsy. I go there, I motivate them, I talk to them, can't you break into groups and assist one another? And the bad part of it is that they still believe in witchcraft. They would say, I would say to them, but there are learners who are bright in the class. Why can't you have a group discussion and work together? Why can't you work, at least if you can have some of you SPS teaching one another and stuff, then we can survive. You are 15, 2 groups are sufficient. They themselves said to me, if you can start that kind of intervention with us, then it means you would not make it, but a lawyer.
So if you show that you are bright.
If you show that you are bright, then you must know but a lawyer. Then the learners have fear
of witchcraft. They don't share material, they don't share anything. So I tried to try to talk to them to say that thing does not exist. There's no such a thing as witchcraft. If it was there, all the other communities and other schools would have seen it happening.
We're not asking for permission. You're misunderstanding us. We're not asking for permission. We have permission from the department. We are merely letting you know what we are here to do. This is our hands.
Yeah, let me go for.
No, it's fine. You can get the advice, but we're waiting.
Hello, we are at the school. The viewers maybe got a bit of a sense it was chaotic images, but they got a sense that there's a bit of a, what can I say?
Apprehension.
Yes. What's going on?
So essentially we got permission to be at the school. So yesterday we were here just doing lay of the land kind of assessment. We spoke to learners who were telling us about the emotional toll this has had on them, the parents who then spoke to the impact that this has had on them and how these kids, according to them, having been led to this failure, according to them, they were actually let down by the system, which is the school leadership and the teachers themselves, with the way in which they are not teaching, they are not dedicated and committed to teaching. And so there were so many other things that came about. Most importantly, the one thing that is unavoidable is the spirit in general. Everyone is just sad. There's no one who's amused. There's no one who finds it funny. Everyone is just sad, with the learners saying who have failed matric, saying that for them the most impactful aspect is that they think that they have shamed their community and now they are labeled as the people who have let down the brand of the community and so forth. And today we came into the school with the permission of the department, of course, to get a sense of the operations of the school. We're looking at discipline, we're looking at structure, we're looking at like the day-to-day. And we obviously getting a bit of, kickback, not only from the school itself. You can see that there is a bit of apprehension with our presence, which is fine. But the SGB herself, Muleferra Nala, who is the chairperson of the SGB, we spoke to her yesterday where you could see also she's not upcoming with information. They again not giving us, allowing us the opportunity to interview them, for them to account, in fact, for what happened, because they're not here. Her reasons of not being able to account is that she has a headache. So it is inconceivable that a headache would stop her from accounting, when in fact the job is to ensure that we understand what happened, because she's the buffer between the school and the parents. So that's where we are right now.
It's day 2. And as you can see, things did not start smoothly for us at Naledi Amiswi Secondary School. We had to record in secret. Our presence was not accepted by anyone, not even the construction workers on site. Before we could get a sense of how the learners are behaving at the school, as we started gathering more information to the circuit manager, it emerged that they have been attempted murder cases the real problem at the school.
Naledi Amiswi is a school under my leadership. Let me start by saying the school it's very small, with an enrollment of this year is 99 learners. So last year when we closed office, the enrollment was at 135, but now the enrollment has deteriorated even more, which says a lot in terms of teacher appointments and how many teachers should actually be at the school. Because our policy in the Department of Education is that it's 1:35 educators. 1 educator is to 35 learners. So which means the school, as it is in terms of enrollment, it was having 5 teachers, inclusive of the principal. The major problem that we had at the school was that the learners that we had at Naledi Amiswi are overaged learners. I don't know, for some reason, most of the learners are always overaged, even starting from grade 8. So, and the teachers who are offering a teaching there are young teachers, except for two. They are very young teachers. The teachers are 20-something years. And the learners, if I can give you the stats that I have, I will start from grade 10. Let me just say grade 10. If you look at from 2022, so to say, in grade 10 only, the learners who were there, who are over age, we mean they are bigger than their grade. So 67% of the learners in 2022 were overaged in grade 10. In 2023, 79% of learners were overaged, which means there are more or less the same age of the teachers they are teaching. And then you look at grade 11. In 2023, 77% of the learners, you can imagine, 77, they were 22, 77 of them are overaged learners. And they almost have teachers of the same age teaching them. And that is where the challenge is. There's a lot of ill discipline, there is a lot of disrespect, and the problem is the discipline at that school, at the area as well. Yeah, the parents and the SGB, you know, the principal can take the responsibility. The teachers should also ensure that they maintain discipline. But the problem is that the parents are not supportive. They are not coming at all. And even now, as we speak, with the SGB, who are supposed to assist the parents, they've withdrawn themselves from the school, and there is only one SGB person remaining. The unfortunate part is that it was not reported to my office why they did not report that the SGB members have been withdrawn or are no longer interested in saving the school. So you can imagine if the school or the people who are governing the school are not there, parents who are supposed to support teachers are also not there, they don't come. Other problem that we did, I deployed an additional educator to the school to go and assist, realizing the fact that for educators to teach 9 subjects in grade 8, 4 educators, 9 in grade 8, 9 in grade 9, 7 grade 10, 7 grade 11, grade 12. So it's too cumbersome for them. We have circuit camps that you host almost all the holidays, autumn, winter, spring, but we would request that we have centers around Tafelkop because they are remotely stationed, geographically speaking. So we couldn't take learners from Tafelkop and take them to the Khalaupeng. It would be far and unfair. So we look at the geographical position of the schools. So we requested parents to pay for transport for learners to go to the camps that we organize as a circuit. But they refuse. They just say they don't have money. But they have money to take learners to other schools. There are kumbis that leave the village. Those children whose parents cannot pay for the taxis are the one that remains at the school, and they are demoralized. I'm not trying to defend anything, but the bottom line is the learners last year were very unruly. They were very disrespectful to the teachers, like the teacher that I say I deployed to help for 3 years at the school. The learners would even try to fight with him. And he wrote a letter and said that I've had enough, I want to leave because this environment is not conducive for teaching. This year he had to go to his former school. There was a girl teacher who was teaching there. And the learners who were in grade 10 by then were 25, 26 years, and they would always fight the teacher in class. We call disciplinary hearings, then the parents come, the SGB come, the learner would jump and want to start fighting the educator in front of the parents, in front of the SGB and everyone. They even tell their parents not to come to school. If they come to school, they will see them at home. What kind of a relationship will you have with such parents and learners at the school?
An allegation that there were at least 2 attempted murders related to the school. What are the details?
We had this other learner, I think it was 2023, who stabbed another learner so badly. He went through the disciplinary hearing and the cases on the desk of the head of department. Isn't it our policy says the head of department is the only person who can expel the learner from school. So then the process is still sub judice. And the learner, the case was also reported to the police. There's a case number, and it has not yet been finalized. It's true. And then we also had another one last year around August, the one who was trending with a slasher, and he was doing grade 12. So the learners there, once one start fighting, they cheer the person up. Everybody cheers up, even if the person is going to kill the other one. That is why I started.
So what was happening with the boy with the slasher?
The slasher, the boy wrote the exam. We allowed him to write the exam because he underwent the disciplinary hearing. Reports have been written and sent to the district.
But what was happening? The incident itself?
Oh, the incident. When this was reported, when I asked the principal said, this thing they are saying it started at home during the weekend. They were fighting during the weekend, and then it looks like the other one overpowered the one who was fighting with a slasher. And then when they came back to school the next week, they started all over again, and they are in the same class. So then, but the parent, it's not the parent, a community member who was part of the disciplinary hearing says they started fighting, throwing apples at each other in the classroom. But the bottom, let me say the long and short of it is that they started back at home during the...
What are they fighting over, do you know?
No, we don't know. The lack of cooperation of parents is key. This other physical science teacher that I've just appointed last year would organize champion teachers from other schools to come and assist the learners on Saturdays and Sunday. You know, he's so disappointed. They reported to me. I tried to speak to the learners. They just say they are going to pass, but they are not writing homeworks, they are not writing anything. They will just sit and listen and look at the teachers. So this educator organized these specialist educators to come and teach. They don't come, not even one. The other day on Saturday and Sunday, the other day only one came. And then they never came. Instead, they lock the key with a lock and put in some pieces of wood inside so that when the teacher comes, he would not be able to open the gate.
The sense is that the principal lacks capacity. The principal lacks motivation to lead the school. And the teachers themselves have kind of given up on them. So they feel let down. So they think that for them, it's a systemic thing. It's not them. How would you respond to the leadership of the school? What has been your experience with the principal herself? What are the issues there? And what is the solution going forward?
Thank you very much, Khali, for this one. Yes, it's true. The principal is not well. And we noticed this in 2023. She was appointed in 2021, and then she started having, should I say, some sort of epilepsy. And then the unfortunate part of it is that the disease just comes at any time, especially when she is provoked. So, and the learners are well aware of that. She's not well. We try to arrange for wellness to take her to the district wellness team came so that we can take her out through incapacity on the grounds of ill health. Unfortunately, by that time in 2024, I think it was October, when we decided that we start the process of wellness so that he can be taken to the doctor, so that he can provide medical certificates that towards her ill health. Unfortunately, she was supposed to go to the doctor, at least so that the doctor can give her a medication and also sick leave. So the principal was not responsive to our instruction or suggestion. Then we thought she had gone on sick leave. And then when we wanted the medical certificate and wanted her to submit, she did not have the medical certificate. Then one day, as I was preparing for the examination, when I went to the school, she's back. She believes she's not sick, but she's sick. And we tried to assist, even yesterday, after the HOD and the premier, after this, the whole impasse, I took her personally to the doctor so that he can be assisted, she can be assisted, so that we can be able to release her on the ground of ill health and appoint at least one of the educators in the meantime to take care of the school. I go there, I motivate them, I talk to them, can't you break into groups and assist one another? And the bad part of it is that they still believe in witchcraft. They would say, I would say to them, but there are learners who are bright in the class. Why can't you have a group discussion and work together? Why can't you work, at least if you can have some of you SPS teaching one another and stuff, then we can survive. You are 15, 2 groups are sufficient. They themselves said to me, if you can start that kind of intervention with us, then it means you would not make it battle lawyer. If you show that you are bright, then you must know battle lawyer. Then the learners have fear of witchcraft. They don't share material, they don't share anything. So you begin, I tried to talk to them to say that thing does not exist. There's no such a thing as witchcraft. If it was there, all the other communities and other schools would have seen it happening.
In the shadow of disappointment, hope remains.
Think that you can surpass this pass rate? Yeah! We promise 100% this year.
What are the changes you'd like to see in the school? Hi, Sissy. What's your name?
My name is
Khali. What grade are you in?
in grade 12.
Grade 12. So, with the results that came out with the last group, what is your feeling about that?
I'm not feeling well. I'm not feeling well.
So, next day, Lisha. So, next day you taking the percentage up.
Yes.
What makes you think you can?
We'll make it 100%.
What makes you think you can?
For the Sunday Times, I am Thabo Shabalala.
For Sunday Times, I am Khali Kumede. We are in Khalaopeng, Limpopo.
It's tough, guys. It's really tough. As you saw when you were.
NSFAS has been an institution that's been characterized by instability, right? So it's had 9 CEOs in 9 years.
What?
It had two periods where it's been under administration. And when I was appointed, it was coming out of a period of administration. Yeah, so I mean, last year we had about 900,000 students. About 600,000 of those students at university level, and about 300,000 are about at technical and vocational training colleges.
In rands and cents?
Last year we had a budget of close to 70 billion rand. Yeah. NSFAS tends to implement things it doesn't have the resources and the capabilities to be able to do so. There's no family in South Africa that doesn't dream of their child becoming a graduate, right? And you can understand the intrinsic motivation that people hold for higher education in the country. And that for many people, it is seen as the most visible route out of poverty. We want to be there to support, because we understand that our students come from marginalized, vulnerable backgrounds. They're traveling, in many cases, far distances to be where they are. The last thing they need is not to know where they're sleeping. Your basic education system is asking us to fund more and more students. Right? And one of the things we've said is that, and Cabinet gave us approval to do this, is go and consult on what is a more sustainable funding and financing model for higher education.
Are you saying there are students who qualified for NSFAS but didn't get it because there was just not enough money?
Not enough places at the moment at university to fund higher education. At points in time, we've taken money away from early childhood development, for example.
Something has to lose.
Yeah, and that's a policy decision, and it's fine. But you're taking money away from younger children to fund an older generation. And there's nothing wrong. It's the trade-offs that you make, right? If you take a talented student, you place them in a university, they complete 3 years of engineering, they fall short at the final step. We've not completed our duty here. Because the labor market treats that young person as a matriculant. I always say it always feels like you're about to drop the ball.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, I like this job.
I think it's less about like it. So I must say that the one thing that's always been present in my life is the fact that it's a privilege to have a job in South Africa.
King David Studio. Yes, we managed to get a hold of a special guest, in my opinion, because this is a man who handles a huge budget. One of the big SOEs in the country, with billions and billions of rands, that focuses on making sure that your child goes to school, you go to school. It's the CEO of NSFAS, Waseem Carrim, a fund that, in my opinion, is plagued by all sorts of stuff in the news. But he came along and suddenly it sounds like someone is cleaning things. There's a cleanup session happening. I hope you're well.
I'm good, and you, David?
I'm awesome, thank you. Thanks for making time, because you walked in here and immediately you said, hey, there's a studio of someone who at some point knocked on your door.
Yeah.
That's Mac.
Yeah, back at the NYDA.
Wow. That's a while ago, eh?
Yeah. Well, I was there a long time. Almost 11 years of my life.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, you came up the ranks.
Yeah, I did. So 2014 to 2025 was at the NYDA.
Where did you start at NYDA? What level?
Yeah, I used to audit the NYDA. Finance is my background. Yes. So I got a bit of an introduction. You'll know NYDA was quite a controversial organization.
Yes.
And as they were trying to clean it up, they said to me, come in through the finance ranks there. And that's where I started. I really never saw myself as a CEO. They said to me, the current CEO was leaving and they need someone to plug the gap. And they said, just 6 months until we appoint someone. And then, 6 months turned into 7.5 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it did feel like a long time,
Lessons learned during that time about, I don't know whether it's young people, because that's really what NYDA is supposed to solve. Or maybe even the economic realities of South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, definitely so. I think, working inside of government is a different perspective to being outside of it here. You understand the nuances, the challenges, the political economy to a large extent, but also really enjoyed working with young people, right? So NSFAS felt like a continuation of a journey, because our constituency at NSFAS is mostly young people, although we do find some people who are older than 35. But really the realities of young people, but also the huge talent and potential that exists out there.
For me, because your worlds are, as you put it, they kind of, complement each other, where you've been and where you are now. I want to spend a second and talk about the economic challenges of the black child in this country, and what are some of the most common misunderstanding by someone who is in an air-conditioned room and they don't quite grasp what this young person is going through. What have you found?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about inequality in conceptual terms, right? And it's very hard for you to grasp it when you've had access to opportunity. I think often the privilege will be like, you convince yourself that it was your own hard work and initiative that got you where you are. And two things can be true at the same time. You can be very hardworking, great at what you do, but those conditions existed for you to be great at that stuff. Yeah, right. So
environment
was right for you, right? And you had the right mentors and guidance and things like that there. And I think there's no lack of willingness or lack of hard work, but conditions prevail for many young people. The conditions in which they grow up, what they're exposed to, has an impact on how you progress. And that's not only true for South Africa, it's true for people around the world, and it's painful when you hear things like, we should just forget about the past, and people should just adjust, and 31 years is a long time. Yes, we shouldn't have a culture of victimhood here, but we really, the journey of redress, the journey of transformation, it doesn't end, right? And I think it's very important that we continue to navigate the conditionalities that different South Africans face, because then we can truly achieve redress in society.
When you hear a leader in government, a leader in politics, like where they says we have a passive society, we can't give you an education and also look for a job for you. What is your reaction to a statement like that?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a balanced person, right? So I try and not make populist statements. So I'll try and think about where the national chairperson and the minister comes from in saying that. And then I think there's two sides to every coin here. Is that I'll say to the minister, you regularly see an internship for 30 people receive 30,000 applications,
That is true. So that means people are not passive.
Yes. I have young people who write to me every day, expressing hope that they can fix their current circumstances by having access to opportunities, right? So that certainly cannot be true, that people are just sitting and waiting
and they're tree somewhere
for opportunities here, right? But it also can be true that we may be creating the framework for passive societies in the way we roll out policy in the country, right? And I'll give you one practical example. We've always lamented the fact that we have 19 million people on social grants, 5 million taxpayers in the country. That equation seems to be on the wrong side, but we've gone and increased the number of social grant beneficiaries. Of course, realistically so during the pandemic when people had no access to income, so we have the social relief of distress grant. But we now have 26 million people on social grants, and the predominant beneficiaries of SRD are young people. Right? Now, I want us to think about the society that we want to cultivate, right? And I don't think it's a society where young people at the end of every month stand in a queue to accept a social grant. We want a society where young people feel that they are vested in this economy, that they have opportunities, that their passions and their talents and their interests can be pursued here. So we have to find the appropriate balance. And one of the things I personally have advocated for is that SRD shouldn't be SRD, because just the framing of the word, social relief of distress,
And then how long does it take?
How long,
Are we distressed permanently?
Permanently, So something like a work seeker grant, that enables you to have access to data and, transportation and things like that, in my view, is better for the society of young people we want to create in South Africa. And I think a more balanced approach, understanding the realities, becomes important for us as a country.
You are now at NSFAS. What, in your opinion, is the public perception of your organization?
It's certainly not great. I think the story of NSFAS is, again, two-sided in nature here, right? Because I think it's been one of the vehicles for massive beneficiaries who've passed through the fund, which I don't think there's anything of a similar scale in South Africa's history here. But the perception is often of the horror stories of student debt and poor and undignified living conditions and late disbursements of allowances and the knock-on effects from that, young girls who become subject to exploitation as a result of NSFAS's failures, students who've taken their life because of the pains they've had to endure from this fund here, right? And of course, you will know, working in the media space, it's the horror stories which captured the attention,
Of course,
Yes, of course.
And the lady that got a lot of money by mistake.
Yes.
That story is. Those are the stories that always capture the
attention. Yeah, and some of the day-to-day work gets lost in the noise around that. But certainly NSFAS needs to be a much more effective and efficient organization to deliver on the considerable responsibility and mandate that it's been given in society.
And fast forward, because they call you acting CEO, and I guess you'll act until you get a Golden Globe. We'll see how far that goes. And fast forward 3 years from now, what do you hope to achieve in your capacity as CEO, however long it lasts for?
So I think the higher education conversation in South Africa has been heavily dominated by the accessibility question, right? So we come from a society where Black people in particular were denied an access to education. And I think, of course, we've gone through many different permutations, but a lot of it compounded during Fees Must Fall 2015, right? Where I think it became very visible for the entire country to see what was unfolding in institutions of higher learning. And I think the sector has never really recovered from Fees Must Fall, and many of the subsequent decisions that were taken after Fees Must Fall 2015, but we've had this question on access, and I fully understand it's interesting. I'm sitting here the day after the matric result, right? And you see the passion that the matric results brings out in people here, because you've walked a long journey through
12 years.
Basic education, and the conditions there again are not easy, and we do produce good results for
88% best we've done.
Although that needs to be tempered a little bit. So you can understand that for many young people, including their families and parents, the journey doesn't end there. There's no family in South Africa that doesn't dream of their child becoming a graduate, right? And you can understand the intrinsic motivation that people hold for higher education in the country, and that for many people, it is seen as the most visible route out of poverty.
Almost the most tangible that you can actually say.
Because also in your community, in your society, in your family, you can point to people and say, I've seen them walk that journey. So this for me is the best opportunity, right? And I think that is where the demand and the pressure for access has continued to increase. But access is only one piece of the puzzle, right? I will continue to argue that the state and society has failed in its duty. If you take a talented student, you place them in a university, they complete 3 years of engineering, they fall short at the final step. We've not completed our duty.
No.
Because the labor market treats that young person as a matriculant.
True.
When they're not.
Yes. They don't even say dropout. You are like, they don't give you credit for the
Yes. So my argument will be is that we can't be a fund that is only focused on accessibility. Accessibility must continue onwards towards graduation, and it must result in a conversation about employment and productivity. Without that, we are just creating lots of access without looking at what is our deeper contribution to the country's skills base and its economic growth. Yeah.
Decode it further for us. When you say access and not completing the journey, give me a practical example. Let's go back to that engineering student that got to final year, didn't finish it, went to school the whole year, just couldn't pass for whatever reason. What exactly are you saying as NSFAS, there's a moment where you stop this and then you're out of the deal?
Yeah. So NSFAS establishes two pieces of academic progression criteria, right? And let me say the context is that we've got a budget and we need to be able to manage it. So in any given year, we've got to support amount of students, and we've got to keep that number balanced so that we don't run out of funding here. So there's two things that we look at. So the first academic progression criteria is that in any given year, a student has to pass 60% of their allocated modules. So if you have 10 subjects for that year, you've got to pass at least 6 to continue with your funding for NSFAS for the next year, right? Gotcha. And that's really there to say, you can't rock up at an institution of higher learning, chill,
lounge around,
feel everything, and then the state must continue to pay, because largely the statistics tell us you're holding a place that somebody else could take, right? Yeah. And then the second thing is that for every qualification, we apply the N+1 rule. And really what that says is that if you're studying towards a 3-year qualification, NSFAS will give you a maximum of 4 years to complete your qualification. And we can't continue funding beyond that. And that's how we kind of balance that. Students do have the right of appeal. So, and in appealing, you do have the ability to make a motivation to NSFAS. So if you suffer a traumatic event like the loss of a parent, that's basis for us to say, or you were not well, and you can provide the supporting documentation. Then we can certainly continue that and say, how do we support you in continuing? So we're not exclusionary, we don't have a one size fits all, but we do manage a very large fund, and we have to create criteria for people to perform, because we are a performance-based fund.
What is the size of your fund?
Yeah, so
for example.
Yeah, so last year we had about 900,000 students. About 600,000 of those students at university level, and about 300,000 are at technical and vocational training college.
In rents and cents?
Yeah, last year we had a budget of close to 70 billion rand. So it's a very big fund. Yeah, it's a very big fund. Yeah.
And has it increased over the years from what you've observed?
Yeah, so here we've got to go back a little bit in the history of NSFAS. And again, we go back to 2015 and Fees Must Fall. And in response to that, you'll remember that then President Jacob Zuma announced...
That Saturday morning.
Well, even before the Saturday morning, he announced the Hair Commission of Inquiry.
Oh, yes, of course.
Not as controversial as the current commissions of inquiry, but nevertheless an important commission of inquiry, and that commission of inquiry, really concluded that the state would not be in a position to be able to finance free higher education, which was the call at the time from mainly student organizations. And then, of course, we know post that the president took a decision to say, well, he would want to implement a policy decision around fee-free education. Not necessarily free, but at the time the decision was all households who earn under 350,000 would qualify for NSFAS funding right? And it would shift away from, it used to be a loan-based fund, it would mostly become a bursary-based fund, And I'm not sure if you remember, but giving implementation to that decision, which was taken in late 2017, the decision in the 2018 budget was to increase VAT by 1%. Just thinking about last year's VAT increase. That 1% VAT was really to fund that policy decision here, But what we found over the last few years is that with the improvement in basic education, so more students getting bachelor pass, but also a cost of living crisis in South Africa, more people being pushed into the threshold to qualify for NSFAS. The demand on the fund is increasing quite.
So it has, over the years, from as an accountant, I'm sure you know the numbers. If you don't, it's okay. At what rate has it increased? Say since when the president announced?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back and check the exact figures, but there has been, if we look at, I think higher education as a percentage of GDP has grown from about 5% to about 8%, right? And that is against the backdrop of other sectors declining. Let me just give you an example, right? To fund higher education, at points in time, we've taken money away from early childhood development, for example.
Something has to lose.
Yeah, and that's a policy decision, and it's fine. But you're taking money away from younger children to fund an older generation. And there's nothing wrong. It's the trade-offs that you make, right? And as a society, you need to, and as a government, you just need to decide what's the kind of trade-offs that you're making. But there has been significant trade-offs in the last few years to continue to fund higher education, because I think government sees it as an important, but it also sees it as a very volatile sector.
Why the phrase volatile?
So I think students are very organized. If you look at movements over time, well, one, because they represent an intellectual class, they operate in environments where it's much easier to organize.
They're already organized inherently.
They are.
Because they're in one space.
Yeah, but they well and truly have a cause that they believe in, and therefore that continues to exist on campuses around South Africa. Add into the mix the fact that students often feel we have a very colonial form of education still on our campuses. There are institutional issues between SRCs and university management. It does create the propensity for volatility, and that volatility needs to be managed by being a listening organization.
Here's I guess speaking to you as just an ordinary South African with some decision-making powers, let's analyze that trade-off. They're taking from there and placing there. What is, in your opinion, the answer sounds easy and simple. What is, in your opinion, the true long-term benefit of that trade-off, if there's any at all? Ignore the volatility of the sector and so forth, and let's just say, look, it's probably not a bad idea at all. How would you answer that? How would you react to that decision, merely as a layman, South African, watching that decision happen?
Yeah, so let me say upfront, higher education has extreme positives for any country, right? And it has both economic as well as social benefits. On the social benefit side, the idea that somebody can come from a household that's dependent on social grants, can work through the basic education system, and can achieve the same qualification as somebody who comes from a privileged background. It's a massive equalizer in society, right? It really has massive impact that it can achieve here, From a social perspective, in terms of sending the right messages to communities in the country, but also from an economic perspective, because we know graduates have the lowest form of unemployment. We know they contribute the most to the tax base. They have the greatest case for social mobility in the country. Where you may create further inequality in a decision such as that is, if you look at, and I'll come back to the matric results here, right? There's two problems that you have with the matric results in South Africa. One is the fact that everybody who starts grade 1 doesn't end up sitting for matric examination. And we haven't created a pathway, not everybody's academically inclined, but we haven't created sufficient of a pathway for young people who leave the basic education system before completing matric. The second problem you have is that if you look at yesterday's results, you've got a pass rate of 88%, so roughly about 550,000 students. There's about 200,000 university places which are available. There's another 100 to 150,000 TVET places.
So there's an oversupply.
There is 200,000 students every year for which there's no visceral pathway through the economy. And we haven't created any sufficient alternative pathways short skills or direct entry into the labor market for those young people. And that's been building and compounding our unemployment problem. So in allowing some people to go to university and not others, you're also further compounding your inequality problem in the country. And you're creating social transformation for some, but not universal coverage for everybody.
You're almost taking it from the suburbs to the townships. You're taking a problem that we grew up accepting. That, the suburbs are higher and the townships are. Now you're taking that same model, you're applying it now to those, because not everyone will make it through the university.
100%. And I think those are some of the challenges as well as the benefits that come from what you're trying to achieve with government policy in the country.
You walk into how long have you been in this position now?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. And I imagine when you got the call up, what was your reaction? Because you were like us, you were reading about it. What was your reaction?
I mean, look, I'd kind of made up my mind that, I'd taken NYD as far as it could go. I needed a new challenge in my life, whether that challenge was as far as...
was it an immediate jump?
Yeah.
Not even a week?
No. And I mean, even I joined in as fast as its chief financial officer, and I thought I'd have a few months to learn the ropes and, figure things out. I'm a finance guy, by the way, and 3 weeks later they told me I'll be the acting CEO. So the pressure's been a lot, since I joined. And it's really joining at the start of an academic year can be quite a considerable challenge that you need to
you got in literally as the ship was either leaving the dock. Like, what's going on? What did you find?
I mean, NSFAS has been an institution that's been characterized by instability, right? So it's had 9 CEOs in 9 years.
That's what you're
It has 3 or 4 different boards of directors. It's had two periods where it's been under administration. And when I was appointed, it was coming out of a period of administration, right? So you can understand what that does to staff morale and culture in the organization. The labor union, they calls me the 9th husband. So it's characterized by high levels of instability. And of course, everybody comes with their own vision and their own strategy, and it's almost like the movie ends the same way every single time,
Is that the energy? Or at least that's what...
And some of it is internal, of course, but much of NSFAS has been external. So we go back to that decision to introduce fee for education. And I want to say it's a very progressive decision, right? But you often hear this term in South Africa is about how we build state skills and capacity. And I just pictured this. So it's late in December 2017. NSFAS is planning for the 2018 academic year on the basis that it's a loan-based fund.
Pause. Late, you're not planning.
You're mad.
You're ready to...
You've got your plan ready. And you're told that no, you're going to shift from being a loan-based fund to being a bursary-based fund.
And how much time are you given for this transition?
I mean, most people are Decembering already. Everybody's got their processes, their plans. Your entire skills is set up around loans. And I often hear this call in society say, we need decisive leadership. Yes, we do need decisive leadership. We also need proper planning and communicating and execution.
For those decisive leadership.
For those decisive decisions, So you can imagine the toll on the organization of having implemented a decision like that. And, I would argue that the organization in some ways never recovered from that decision because of the impact it had on its people, on its processes, on its systems.
So it was a massive bump.
It was. As much as it was a progressive decision. And I must
almost like a COVID bump.
And then when I say NSFAS has a way of also shooting itself in the foot sometimes. So let's take the issue of student accommodation, right? So student accommodation is managed by the institutions themselves. So institutions take responsibility for educating young people if they need accommodation for housing them. And it's not like it was free from issues. So you would pick up instances where young people were living in undignified conditions. And I think the pressure on NSFAS at the time would have been to say, well, this is your money, right? You're the funder. How are you allowing your students to be exposed to these kind of...
Understandable,
yeah. Right? Now, in retrospect, is a great thing. Perhaps if I was there, I'd have done things a little bit differently, But NSFAS decides, okay, well, it's going to become more involved in student accommodation, which is quite a different thing to student funding. It's more of a property management function.
It's hotelier.
Yes. You've got to grade properties, then you've got to sign lease agreements, and it's historical care, and the municipal bylaws.
It's beds, it's taps, it's water, it's electricity, you name it.
Yes. And NSFAS does not necessarily say, well, let's do the required feasibility work, risk assessment, build the skills and capacity. It just dives right in, decisive leadership.
Well, that's another decisive moment.
And the student housing crisis has really come on from that decision also, is to say, you don't have the skills and capacity to be able to manage it here, but you're trying, and you then see issues of students sleeping in libraries, and student hopelessness, and it leads to your credibility as an organization. I'll give you one last example, right? Is that, okay, now you've shifted from being a loan-based fund to being a bursary-based fund, and government says, okay, there seems to be a problem. The missing middle doesn't have access, so we want to introduce a missing middle loan fund, You don't have people, you don't have a system, you don't have processes, but you say, we'll do it. And I think, to me, that seems to be the journey in the history of the organization, is that through internal and external pressures, it's been taking decisions that it's not resourced or capacitated to do. And, it was Einstein who said, every human is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree,
then the fish is dumb.
Yeah. So it's not a bad institution, but it needs to look at its resources and its capabilities to execute on a very important mandate that government and society have given it.
Over the years, we've had phrases like not fit for purpose, describing NSFAS. Sounds like a big statement.
Yeah.
Pretty much saying that dog doesn't bite.
Yeah.
So how would you describe it? Again, I go back to when you walked in.
Yeah.
And I like that you didn't walk in straight as CEO. You walked in and looked at the numbers.
Yeah.
What did you find when it comes to the numbers?
Yeah. So I think the big problem on the financial side is the oversubscription on the fund, right? So you've got a lot of young people who want to study and who meet the criteria to be able to qualify for funding from NSFAS, right? And you've got, it's an economics problem, you've got a finite amount of resources, and your demand for those resources exceeds what you're able to provide.
Yeah.
So balancing the budget is a huge issue, right? And you mentioned it, is to say you have sympathy for students who want to finish here, but you've got to balance that against how many new students do I have coming into the fund.
Yes. And you can't delay them.
Yeah, and I think the trajectory that we've been on is to say to government, well, if your annual allocation is increasing by inflation or just less than inflation, you have to consider that inflation just eats into tuition increases, accommodation increases, allowance increases. So you've created no space for new students in this, whereas your basic education system is asking us to fund more and more students. Right? And one of the things we've said is that, and Cabinet gave us approval to do this, is go and consult on what is a more sustainable funding and financing model for higher education. Because the other argument that's there to be made is this 350,000 is very arbitrary in nature. One person's 350,000 is very different to another person's 350,000. And I'll give you an example, is to say, I get a lot of parents who write to me and say, I'm above the threshold. I have 3 children at university at the same time. I just can't cope.
So they technically fall within.
They do, right? And then what you're in effect creating is a system where students do well, but they're also excluded from studying. So the country is losing out on possible skills and resources. So one of the things is we've said is that you need a differentiated higher education funding model, right? That speaks to the realities that different people face, and that both understands the economic realities as well as contributions to the skills base. Because the other conversation we need to have is to say that unemployed graduates figure has been ticking up slowly. And with the advent of AI...
It's the noise we pretend we can't hear.
Yes. Are all of these degrees and qualifications that people studying still relevant to what the economy in South Africa needs? Yeah. And does the economics of what we're doing actually make sense?
There's a lot, hey?
Yeah.
And you deal with this, you cold face. You're like...
Yeah, right on the front line.
On the front line of these realities.
Yeah.
I'm also curious to know in terms of the decisions that you made, because in the conversation we had on the radio and reading up on this in preparation for this, I realized that there's been decisions that were different this time around from previous administrations, if I have to use that phrase. What did you do that's different? Because it sounded like you were that student that finished the assignment long before the deadline. Am I correct?
Yeah, so look, I think having looked at NSFAS, right, and I think what's important is also recognizing your constituency. So students are represented by student representative bodies. Universities in South Africa are represented by bodies called Universities South Africa. I think we listened to what people were saying. It's also easy to dig your head in the sand and say, we're doing the best we can or whatever else. It's important to listen to say, well, okay, how can we improve what we do here? And a lot of the issues were day-to-day operational issues that I think NSFAS was just not really good at communicating at. A big part of what I said was that the 2025 academic year had already started, so the best we can do is try and stabilize what was happening in a very chaotic ecosystem and plan better for 2026. And in planning better for 2026, one of the things we said was, all right, let's have a very clear opening and closing date for applications for the cycle.
2026.
Let's communicate that in advance. Let's tell the country, let's do outreach, let's do media and all of those things there. Let's reach out to the Department of Basic Education. And we say once we have a closing date, let's try and give everybody a decision as soon as possible. So even before the next year starts, let's try and communicate all of our funding decisions here, whether you're a continuing student, whether you're a first-time entering student here, so that as you go into the matric results announcement, as you go into the university registration cycle, you know where you stand, because you will know as a human being, the most difficult thing to deal with is anxiety, not knowing. Because at least if you know, you can make alternatives.
That's true. Yeah.
The worst,
if you know you're rejected,
it's not knowing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think that was really what we tried to address, right? And then to be very clear in our communication, to say this is where we are, and also to be clear about our challenges here. Whether we like it or not, there's a shortage of 100,000 beds in the country. And we'll be honest, this is the regions in the country that don't have enough beds. This is the mechanism we've created to be able to address it here. So those two things, planning and communication, trying to be better at what we do and shape and tell our own narrative to society. And then on the other side of it is that, I think I said this to you on the radio, is that everybody has a plan. Mike Tyson said, till you get punched in the face. So you have to be able to be responsive and agile and flexible to changes in your environment and not just ignore issues until they become a big crisis.
Was there a punch in the face?
Not yet. I mean, I don't think things have fallen apart. I think everybody in higher education stresses about another fees must fall here. I think that's what everybody stresses about. That's what weighs on your mind. But there are levers and mechanisms you can pull to be able to prevent that from happening. And then part of that is planning and communication.
Like I said, a student that finished the assignment before time. Give us the numbers. What are the numbers? How many applications applications? What did you process? And because the numbers sound so humongous.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at, let's start with continuing students. So those are students that are already on NSFAS. So I think we had about 540,000 university students, and we would have given 423,000 permission to continue, so they would have met that academic progression criteria, and they know their statuses.
When do they know that status?
On the 31st of December here. So universities give us their results on the 15th of December, and then we've got a tool that runs in the background that analyzes whether they've met that academic progression criteria. So that, and that's because, you know, the registration for them reopens early in the next year. So then it's easier for them to re-register. This is the date I'm going to leave home, arrive on campus, and there's that certainty in your life, because that makes your academic journey easier, right? It's true. So there's that, and then there's the issue of first-time entering students. So first-time entering students, they, of course, we check their financial eligibility. So do they meet the household income test?
So imagine that's a longer process.
Yeah, it is. Mainly because of we've got to verify their ID numbers and their parents' ID numbers against the Home Affairs database. If they are beneficiaries of SASSA, that's an automatic decision, so they automatically qualify for funding from NSFAS. If not, we need their parents to consent to them us checking their income. And once we know their income, you know, we run a test and we're able to communicate the decision over to them. But again, we want those students to know the decisions before the matric results are released. Because you'll know what happens after the matric results is universities extend offer letters to students. So we want our students to say, I know I'm funded. I know I've got acceptance from a university.
I'm waiting for a pass.
Yeah, that's where I'm headed. And I think that's really the certainty we've tried to provide. I think you also deal with a lot of disappointment because of this limited first-time placements at institutions.
Are you saying there are students who qualified for NSFAS but didn't get it because there was just not enough money?
Not enough places at the moment at university.
So money, more places than money.
More places, yeah. So you'll know that universities around the world, you know, they create scarcity as a commodity here. Right? So they limit the amount of students they take per qualification, whatever. Students, next to a higher education. So as NSFAS, we've deployed full-time capacity to institutions to be there and be present to support our students.
Full-time?
Yeah.
They go
during the registration period. So there's an NSFAS desk there. We issue guidance to our first-time students to say, well, you've got your matric results. If you're accepted at university, these are your next steps. And I think that's the position. That we have is that we want to be there to support, because we understand that our students come from marginalized, vulnerable backgrounds. They're traveling in many cases far distances to be where they are. The last thing they you know,
on the night they arrive.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we've got to done is to, you know, we've done estimations. The expected number of students versus accommodation available, so that within 48 hours of student arriving, we can have them placed in accommodation, that they know where they stand, and that their academic journey is able to start. So that those support mechanisms have been instituted to support students on that journey. Of course, you know, young people are technologically focused, and we've got an NSFAS portal which we use to communicate with, and of course we rely on the institutions a lot, you know. I mean, just this coming week, we'll have a workshop with all financial aid officers, so that we're not giving students mixed messaging, that when you qualify for NSFAS, you know what you qualify for, what are your expectations.
I'm curious, because we can't speak NSFAS and not be historic in our reference.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I even asked that question of what happens to a young person who arrives at school, because in the past things were very different.
Yeah.
You would have students, as you said earlier, who sleep in library all the way into the middle of the year. And so when you arrived, what did you do immediately to change that experience, if it has changed at all? Because now you're going to test it now.
Yeah. So I think the one issue is to be responsive. So I think one of the things I would have said to University South Africa as well as to the student representatives is that, all right, let's avoid trying to deal with each other through protests and media and things like that. I understand. I hear the anger, I hear the frustration, but before you escalate issues, at least come to us and give us an opportunity to be able to resolve what issue is.
Let's talk about this.
Yes. Let's if we can't find each other, by all means,
you can strike.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing we try to do through 2025 and say, how can we be responsive to issues, resolve them so that we don't allow crisis to escalate here. And then through doing that, I think we picked up what were the commonalities of issues that were being faced, and how do we plan in advance so that these issues don't repeat themselves going into another year? How do we plan in coordination? Because you also understand that here you're not solely responsible. You're very dependent on institutions themselves, right? And
you are building your farm on somebody else's land.
100%, And I think a big part of that was saying, well, how do we support each other here? Because ultimately, if you get it right, you collectively look good. If you get it wrong, it's all of us who suffer. Yeah? So we have a vested common interest in getting this thing right.
There's something called direct payment.
Yeah.
Was that a change at some point?
Yeah.
It wasn't like that, and it changed.
Yeah. So I think in 2023, NSFAS trialed a new model, right? And again, I don't want to problematize what previous administrations. I think these matters are well intentioned, right? So you do have situations where students are utilizing allowances for not necessarily the purposes of what they should be here. So we have issues of substance abuse, we have issues of online gambling, those kind of things there. And I think NSFAS would have wanted a system that was better able to provide services to students, financial services to students, and also give them better tracking on how students were utilizing allowances that were being provided.
Was that the intention?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so. Yeah. Unfortunately, things seem to have gone very wrong. Students would not receive their allowances on time. They would, receive incorrect amounts. I think they felt that bank charges that were being charged were excessive in nature.
I think that was quite a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, that word I mentioned is volatility. If you create enough chaos, you will create a crisis.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it played out. There was protests on campus, there was a lot of anger, and rightly so. I mean, if you're dependent on your allowance to buy food and you can't get an answer on why you're not getting it, it does create the propensity for that kind of chaos.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, the decision that was taken was then to suspend those contracts, to go back to a model where universities pay allowances on behalf of NSFAS while we go back to the drawing board and try and figure out.
Is that where you are now?
Yeah, so I mean, we at a university level, the universities are well resourced to be able to pay allowances. I mean, there's a big debate about whether allowances should be cash-based or whether they should be card-based, with limitations on purchases. There's a school of thought that says these are adults, we need to trust them. There's another school of thought that says, in my first year of university, I was not very responsible.
I'm curious to know which side of the school of thought you fall in as the CEO of NSFAS.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a duty to protect students from exploitation, right? And I think when you're young and impressionable, you are open to exploitation.
You have a card, and how much is in that card? Beginning of the month?
Yeah, I mean, so just to give you your allowances, you get a once-off book allowance that is paid in cash of about 5,000 Rand.
That's in the card?
Yeah, no, it's in your account. You open a bank account, your bank account is cash. Yeah, you can spend it.
That's 5K?
Yeah, which is meant to be used for your books or for learning materials.
But it's 5,000.
Yeah, and then you get a living allowance. We'll think about 1,600 a month.
That's 6,600?
Yeah, and then you get 300 rand for personal care a month.
That's what happens at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
And then that's beginning of the year. I have this bank card.
Yeah.
It's written ABSA on it.
Yeah.
And it has 7,200 bucks or 7,100 rand. Man.
Yeah.
And then you remember when you spoke about, I just come back from Molechi somewhere in Limpopo, and a week ago I was shooting fireworks, celebrating with my friends, and I'm thinking, wow, should I pass? And then in Jan, on the 10th, 15th of Jan, I have 7,000 rands in my bank account.
Yeah.
My life has changed.
It really has, and that's the kind of issues we need to think about, but we've got to be very balanced in how we implement changes in decisions. So go back to that thing I spoke about of saying NSFAS tends to implement things it doesn't have the resources and the capabilities to be able to do so. So the model has to be focus on your core and then build from there.
True.
If you're going to offer a good, positive service to your students.
I think there's something to be said about monitoring how the funds are used.
There is, yeah.
Because it's only natural.
Yeah, and I think you also have the opportunity, right? Because you have such spending power. Now. You're talking about 900,000 students every month with that amount of spending amount. Just think about the economy that exists around campuses in South Africa. So you have the opportunity to really support an economy around student life. But there's huge other opportunities, like implementing student discounts as a result of bulk buying power. And really, creating a shared valued model for our students. And again, right? As I've taken time to mature over years and whatever else, you realize the impact that alcohol has on young, impressionable
100%.
people, right? 100%. Substances as well, and more recently, online gambling. Right? And we have to prevent our students from being exploited, right? And I think that's a very important question that we as NSFAS need to answer.
If online gambling, amongst others, comes across a lot in an NSFAS conversation, how are you monitoring that? How do you even know that that's what's happening?
Yeah, a lot of it surfaced through media reports that we would have received. So I think the media would have picked up on issues like that there. I think over the last 2 years or so, there's been quite a bit of reporting, even by traditional media, about the spike in online gambling, right? Obviously, gambling is one of those vices that exists in society. Before you had to drive out to a casino to be able to do it, but with the advent of
country,
But with the advent of tech, it's made it much easier for people to be able to do that. And I think that there's been a massive report on how household income is being spent on gambling, but also the number of calls that the responsible gambling hotline is receiving here. So I think those are the challenges that exist. It's then our responsibility about how we respond to that. So we're engaging with the National Gambling Board, for example, about what are the preventative mechanisms that can exist. It seems like there's some willingness to block student accounts, block social beneficiary accounts from opening gambling accounts. And I think that is important. But this discussion has existed. If you just look at alcohol, how long has the discussion existed about banning alcohol advertised?
As long as we've been alive.
So there's also interfaces between politics and money here that are, if you go and pull the political party funding report, you'll find that gambling companies are donating quite a significant amount of money to
who else pays for those posters on the polls? Somebody. I don't know if you are able to speak on some of the irregularities and tender irregularities that have creeped into NSFAS system. Whether you saw them as you walked in, or you heard about them, or you found out about them once you walked in. I'm not sure if you're able to speak to any of those challenges.
Yeah, I mean, so law enforcement is all over NSFAS, and we've got the special investigating unit.
Well, you have an office there.
Yeah, we've got the Hawks doing a number of investigations, you know. So I think, you know, the challenge with South Africa has been, you know, where state institutions house budgets and things like that. There has been a propensity for abuse, and, you know, people see large volumes of money, and tenderpreneurs appear, and, you know, deals like
yours is large.
Yeah, it is very large, you know, and it's, a lot of people want access to those funds, you know, and unfortunately that's become a big part of the credibility question around NSFAS, you know, which overshadows the positive work that it does, you know. So it's things that the institution needs to get right. It needs to offer a procurement process that's fair, competitive, transparent, you know. As part of the turnaround plan for the institution, that is one of the things that must be addressed, you know. Improving our audit outcomes is critically important to the stabilization and the functionality of this institution.
I read that even a CEO was fired in relation to this, and a board was dissolved.
Yeah.
Because these shenanigans.
Yeah.
These are your predecessors.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a subject you want to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's obviously challenges that the organization has faced, right? You know, procurement has become such a challenging thing in the public sector, in that it attracts all these kind of vested interests that I think people want to be able. So you talk about student accommodation. It's a 20 billion rand sector every year, you know, and people want their piece of that. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to participate, but you've got to do it in the right process, you know. And you're right. What is 1% of that
20 billion
of that allocate to?
Yeah.
You know, but we have a responsibility in terms of the constitution to act appropriately, to act in terms of the laws and the regulations and the NSFAS Act, and to really get things right, you know, because the cost of not getting it right is being fired and being
dissolved and
having
humiliated.
Having your career ruined, you know. So you don't want to enter into that terrain. It is important to do things the right way.
And since you've been there, because we all look to you now. We all look to you. Government looks to you to say, are you going to clean it up? Has there been pressure in really getting this thing organized? As you put it, it's the type of thing that could ruin not only the institution, but also your own career.
Yeah. I think a big challenge about NSFAS is you can't stop and fix the machine, right? That's ideally the situation you want. You know, if somebody could say to me, you've got a 6-month window where you do nothing else except fix, that's great. I don't think that's too difficult to be able to do. But students need to get paid every month. There's an entire ecosystem underpinned by this entity that needs to function, right? And I hate that saying, but because nobody fixes the plane while we're flying. No, if the pilot's trying to fix the plane, I'm on it. You know,
everyone is flying. We don't want to know.
So I don't know, but it's the equivalent to that is that you're trying to implement changes and reforms while the machine continues to run in the background. And I think getting that balance right, and also, you know, your people, because you've got to draw people out of their day-to-day work to say, all right, we need to work on this as a program of reform, or this is a program of change here. But they've got so much to do on a day-to-day basis just to keep right. And I think achieving that balance becomes important around any institution. You know, I mean, if you compare to ESCOM, remember the dark days of stage 6 load shedding, you know, where it really felt dystopian in any case. But you know, you've got to hunker down and say, what's the end goal there, and what are the steps that are going to take us to be where we want to be as an institution.
I'm also curious to know about some of these challenges. There's a word, ghost beneficiary.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Yeah, I must say, and look, this is what I say, right? Is I think sometimes, the media needs things to report on, and politicians need things that they need to make noise about. Yeah, but this is the process that NSFAS goes through. Right? When you apply, you're required to put your own ID number and that of your parents. That gets validated against the Home Affairs database. Yeah. Your ID number gets validated against the basic education database. If you're a SASSA beneficiary, we validate against the SASSA database. We've done multiple checks before we decide that you are eligible for funding. But even when you're eligible for funding, you still have to present yourself on the other side as a student with a student card and a student number. Now,
registered.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying that somebody can't bypass that, but you take a lot to bypass that entire system,
Take someone that knows the system.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it can't exist.